Forces in the United States that are more powerful than Congress, more powerful than the President of the United States, more powerful than the President and the Congress combined. And are those forces the ones that are really in control of our military and our foreign policy? These questions aren't new. But this week, as we learned that both Mike Pompeo and John Bolton are essentially ignoring the President of the United States, if not actually bigfooting him on Iraq and on Afghanistan, it kind of got us to wonder around here. Got us to wonder, is there a secret controlling government that has nothing to do with the government that we actually elect? And I'm not talking about tinfoil hat argument of microchips in people's brains and secret signals being set by, through our TV sets and all that crazy talk. That's not what we mean when we say deep state. What we're talking about is a potential combination of big media, political establishments, military industrial contractors, working in synergy for two things: power and money. It's that simple. By the way, who's going to buck these guys? This giant, multi-billion-dollar forces. Who's going to buck them? Who's going to stand up to them? Donald Trump? Apparently not. Maybe Ron Paul? We asked him. Here's what he had to say. There's a lot of people who are going to listen to our conversation, and I know what they're thinking. They're thinking, it doesn't matter whether it's Donald Trump or Barack Obama or Mickey Mouse in the White House. There's just things that are done in this country that happen despite who's sitting in the Oval Office. And one of them are these foreign affairs decisions that always tend to be pro-war. What do you say to those people? Are they right?
I think that's true. I think that happens. I saw it when I was in the Congress. If you had a Pelosi and Paul Ryan or a Boehner, they worked very much together, and they always made sure the funding was there. And just recently, the military funding went from $700 billion, and quickly, we have to pass. It's the end of the year, $770. But the distraction is, of course, what about this $5 billion? To build this war? They distract you from that. But no, and I think to get into leadership, it's not, you don't earn your stripes. That was one thing that I had made a decision even before I went to Washington. And while I was there, if I had set my goal as to become chairman of the banking committee, I would have had to sell my soul, really, in a way. You do exactly what they tell you. You raise a lot of money, and it costs a couple million. Now it's probably $5 or $10 million to deliver to the party. And you have to do that by kowtowing to the powerful special interests, mainly the military-industrial complex. Yeah. So it's a rotten system.
Think about what he just said, right? You have to sell your soul, and you have to kowtow to the system, and you have to at least raise about $5 million just to be able to keep doing what you're doing. That's what he just said. That's what it takes to be a congressman in America today. Now, we kept talking to Congressman Paul and asked him about what he thinks of the possibility that this situation could somehow be remedied. Most people you'd think would say, no, this thing is so deep that it can't be fixed. But you'd be surprised. He is not of that mind. He believes that younger Americans like you watching this show right now instead of Fox or CNN hold the key to the future. Listen to what Ron Paul says.
I'm not all that pessimistic because I think this thing just won't work, and we will have the opportunity, but there's a few of us that have to get our message out, but those few are growing in numbers, and I was convinced as I campaigned for the presidency that a lot of young people, if they hear the message of liberty and personal responsibility and anti-war, and then if you can explain crony capitalism through the monetary system, you can energize them.
So let's do this. Let's talk about the deep state. We want to look into this even a little bit further, especially after that conversation. I mean, think about what he just said one more time. Let me give it to you one more time. You have to sell your soul. This is what he said it was like to be a congressman. You have to sell your soul. You have to be able to raise at least $5 million or you're out. And you have to kowtow to the military-industrial complex. Those are his words, man. Something we should really know more about. We've asked our correspondent, Michelle Greenstein, to find out more about this. I'm almost passionate about this because, we're talking about our democracy here. And if there is something called the deep state, it really is controlling the people that we elected. We didn't control those guys, the deep state. We controlled the people we thought were going to change the system. But why can't they?
Right. Well, there certainly are these agencies that remain in power as presidential administrations and as Congress people come and go, and they operate not on behalf of you and me, but on these powerful business interests, the same business interests that Ron Paul alluded to when he talked about the military-industrial congressional complex. I mean, he mentioned the CIA, and so did you. These business interests really dominate our intelligence agencies. The CIA operations really have an MO. Whenever American business interests are threatened anywhere in the world, the CIA will jump in and undermine that government, whether it's elected or not, and mobilize the opposition to it by any means necessary. So we have everything from rigging elections and intimidation to death squads and assassination. And this isn't for the American interest. This is not a democratic situation. This is not on behalf of you and me. This is for these business interests that the CIA is there to protect. And this is, again, not really a top-down, wild, giant conspiracy. There are no Illuminati meetings in the dead of night. Right. This is really just the natural progression of a state where businesses are allowed to become so powerful that it makes sense for them financially to use a tool like the CIA to their advantage. They can afford to use these elected and non-elected government bodies.
And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it does seem like it's uncontrollable. And now it's not affected. This is not a Democrat thing. This is not a Republican thing.
Oh, it's a huge bipartisan.
The whole shebang.
I mean, think about the Congressional Armed Services Committee. These are the people that decide how much money we're going to spend on war and which wars and which weapons contractors get them. These deliberations are secret. So it's not representative of you and me. And the senior members of the committee all take about $700,000 from these weapons industry corporations. Let's talk about them for a second. Okay, some of the biggest ones, Lockheed Martin, 87% of their annual revenue, or rather of their net sales from 2017 came straight from the U.S. government.
Wow.
And that's including foreign military sales. So they have a hand in what our foreign policy is. Of course they do. For Raytheon, that number is 80%. For Northrop Grumman, that number is 85%.
And these are trillion-dollar companies.
Exactly. And when you depend on a single customer for such a significant portion of your business, and you have such a vested material interest in keeping the U.S. government at war, of course, it's a simple business decision for them to spend some money making sure the U.S. government stays at war. And that's what you alluded to when you spoke of Bolton and Pompeo kind of backtracking on Trump.
Yeah, and they come from that world. There's one thing we have to say, because it really should come down. I tell my children, I try to be as good a dad as I can, and as imperfect as I am, and I'm probably more imperfect than most people. I really believe that you got to have principles, you got to have morals, and you got to have integrity. And at some point, you got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love this country, and I'm not going to allow this to happen. Where the hell are those people?
You mean people on the inside?
People, like congressmen who comes and these guys are buying them out.
There are hundreds of thousands of these employees of the military-industrial complex, right? They have to sign these NSA and CIA secrecy agreements. So if they want to blow the whistle, they can just slap the state secrets privilege on you and put you in prison. So the entire system works against people coming out and telling the truth.
Well, how about our elected officials? Why have they sold out? Because it seems like they really have, and in really big numbers.
Well, they wouldn't rise to that position if they weren't willing to.
Or another day. Thank you, as usual. Fantastic. Good stuff.
Thanks.